Hello and welcome to my channel, Meta Tarot. If you are enjoying these videos, please subscribe and thumbs up on the video if you could. Thanks. So the name of my channel is Meta Tarot, and Meta means loving kindness. So it is the spirit with which I want to review and maybe create some insight about our now occurring troubling times. So I talk to a lot of people, and I do notice a few points of stress, like this wondering if things will get back to normal, and I would like to address that in a video soon. Today I'm going to talk about Ivanka Trump and her emails and where she's at right now. I just want to do an in general view of what's going on with her, because one thing I notice, and I know a lot of other people notice, how this is the time of the divine feminine ever since the Women's March on Inauguration Day, what seems like a millennia ago. Anyway, so I just noticed that we see these images of women who are prominent in our culture. Stacey Abrams has been on my mind quite a lot because I think she just really super had a hard time, and I've been feeling her energy just like she's taken on a lot for all of us. So I would really recommend, if anyone has any loving kindness to share, to even just in spirit, in light, to share it with Stacey Abrams, because gosh, what a warrior she is for all of us. And then other folks, you know, like Kristen Cinema, who advanced, and one of my favorites, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. So, and so many others, you know, it's just such a great time in a way to see the balancing of the energies arise. And I think sometimes we see these images of women who are maybe getting adjusted. Maybe there's a lot coming into balance right now. So I'd like to see what the cards say. I haven't actually read on Ivanka Trump at all in my personal life, so this will be kind of interesting to me to see what the cards say. So I'm wondering about Ivanka Trump and what's going on with her, where her issue with her emails might be going, and if we actually might see some changes from her in her basic approach to her life and her position. Okay, so Ivanka Trump. Wow, I'm getting a bunch of multi-cards for her, so that'll be interesting to see. All right, I'm just putting those down. That's been happening more and more. I think I mentioned that in a video, that things are so fast-moving and multi-dynamic. We're in such a multiverse right now that the cards are showing up in pairs and triplets all over the place. So I'm just going to let that be. So the energy that shows up in this reading is a past of a lot being given to her, and this sort of opulence that just became her life from a young age. And there's a sense about her of being quite visual. I know this is a water card. This is the Ace of Cups. And so it's really also showing a receivership. It's an interesting thing because this card is also about spiritual connection. And I think from a young age, Ivanka was able to see a spiritual connection. So where this is going is towards the emperor and control, and maybe doing what daddy wants her to do. There's also a sense of stability and not wanting things to get out of control, or for the boat to be rocked so much. I'll go down here, like what's underneath, what is arising, what is arising from the foundational level of the reading is the Four of Pentacles, which is clinging to possessions, clinging to what is, clinging to status even, next to the Page of Pentacles. And the page can deal with messages and news, and it can also be about communications and study in the mind. So it's also the beginning of something. So it's showing somebody who maybe isn't super aware of what's happening with their communications. And in some ways, maybe, I'm sure she's very savvy with money, but maybe isn't completely aware of where everything's coming from and going to. So she might plead ignorance to any wrongdoing that's occurred. I feel like she's, beset right now. And it's funny that there are these three cards all on top, and that's the King of Pentacles, the Three of Pentacles, which just keeps coming up so much in all the readings for political topics, and then the Seven of Swords. And so this is just rich and dynamic. So the King of Pentacles is quite likely, interestingly enough, her husband, who is a Capricorn, and his sort of quiet solidity in that Three of Pentacles, with making a way for yourself in the world by appealing to others. The Three of Pentacles is the craftsperson meeting with the two wealthy folks to communicate about his work. And then there's the Seven of Swords, which is deception, sneaking around. So she might be actually kind of worried about her husband and his business dealings, and not only that, but who he's been working with. There's a sort of who to this question right now that's sort of interesting. It's not just her that she's worried about. And there's a interesting emphasis on the male between the King of Pentacles and then the Emperor. I sort of think that Ivanka has the impression that she has to please men in her life, that she has to show up in a certain kind of way. And she's aware of her power and her authority, but I think she feels like it's kind of reflected from her circumstance and who she's with. And she is a Libra, so that actually makes some sense that she would be viewing herself in terms of her relationships. And so while she might be criticized and for wrongdoing at this time, she's more looking to her personal relationships to help her out. But I think she's quite worried about her husband at this point. And I think she does know that there is some wrongdoing, and perhaps that shows up in her emails. But these cards down here, the Four of Pentacles and the Page of Pentacles, tell me that she's going to plead ignorance as much as possible. And also with her emails, there's a lot. I think she knows now that the access to her emails was more than she maybe thought, because there's this innocent vibe going on where I think she just thought it didn't matter. Not so much that she thought she could get away with it, because she maybe didn't think there was too much to get away with, because she probably thought that no one was really looking. So there's I don't know, there's a strange double-edged kind of sword to her perspective on matters, like, oh, I didn't really do anything, oh, somebody thinks I did something wrong, I better go talk to my dad and my husband. She's gonna focus more on those relationships. And then, yeah, that makes sense. More cups coming from the Ace of Cups, where there's just this privilege that, privilege can make people blind to their own wrongdoing and to the suffering in the world, and people can just not really notice from the privileged point of view. And I think these cards are talking about change in her approach, and I feel that she's going to really enter into kind of just a denial, like, oh, I didn't really do anything, and she's happy with her defense and happy with her relationships, it looks like. And she might even advance spiritually from this, because I have a hit about Ivanka. I think that she actually has the capacity to be a pretty spiritual person, but she's been so influenced by her strange upbringing and how much wealth was there. I really feel her having adopted from her growing up this sense that it's important to be rich, and you should really focus on that, and things have to look good. And I just sense there's this calling from deep inside her spirit to be a more divinely inspired person, to be a more spiritual person. And over here we see the Nine of Cups is the wish fulfillment, and it's also indulgence. And the Knight expresses a change, and so she may, from this whole experience, understand that there's something more that she could be reaching for, instead of it always being possessions. So I'm gonna see if I can get a little bit more information about where this is going, towards the Emperor, towards more clinging to status. This is, I think, obviously her dad. Yeah, she's kind of trapped in it. She feels pretty trapped, like she doesn't have too many other options. And, what would Ivanka Trump do anyway if she decided to be a spiritual guru? I do hope she's listening to this, because I do think there's so much more she could be doing in her spiritual life. And I know she meditates. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So, I feel like she has to apologize. She has this message where she wants to say she didn't know that anything she was doing was wrong or bad, and she just quickly wants to change things, and she, I think, will apologize and maybe even describe some of the things she might do to change. And so there's a couple things going on for her. There's just her own story about her misuse of emails and where she was emailing from. And there's the other story about her personal relationships. there's a super need in her to be, it's not even approval from men, it's just, she really wants recognition. She wants to be the visual performer, so she is. She learned from a young age to be a visual performer. She doesn't like it when things look bad, and I think maybe she got some of that from her parents too, the not wanting things to look bad. I know I read something a few years ago about Ivanka Trump where she talked about always wanting to dress nicely and have her hair done, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. She expressed a dislike for messiness or anything like her hair not being washed, etc., etc. So that's what Ivanka grew up with. You know, she grew up with that sort of sensibility that things need to look good and be clean. And I imagine there was quite a lot of pressure on Ivanka to look a certain way and to behave a certain way. And that's really carried out into her adult life. The middle cards here, the Nine of Cups with its indulgence and its lack of reflection, its lack of finding some real soulful meaning to things. Looks like it could change with the Knight of Cups. It looks like it could find that spiritual flow and move on. It's tricky though. With her emails, it looks like she's just going to want to really gloss it over, and it kind of seems like she might be able to. And the other thing is she's really, really concerned about her husband and his dealings and where that might lead her. I don't actually think that the King of Pentacles in this case is referring to Donald Trump, because he's a Gemini, and I would just expect to see something with a wee bit more air in here. And there is the Seven of Swords, but so she might be, you know, thinking about that too. But I do think she's considering her family and what she might do if Jared gets called out for any kind of double dealing or dealing with the wrong people or not admitting to things that he should have or not presenting things clearly. I think she's quite concerned about that. And she may have some good reason, because when the special counsel's report comes out, there will just be some things that she is not in control of. That's another way that I'm reading these three cards, with the solidity, the Emperor as the solidity of the law, and her being bound to it with the Eight of Swords here. And the Eight of Swords can be everything that it looks like, that figure tied to those swords and blindfolded in the way that justice is, with the idea that justice isn't biased. It's just going to work by its own terms and conditions and create the conclusions from that system. And she's just going to have to accept it and move forward with it. I'm not really getting a whole lot of detail about that, but I do think that the final report from Robert Mueller and anything we might see coming out of that does have quite a lot of bearing on Ivanka, whether she's named or not. Okay, thank you so much. Please subscribe and thumbs up on this video. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.